A black Mercedes stopped outside our tiny apartment, and a stranger asked, "Is Mr. Ryan Parker here?" That's when I realized my poor husband wasn't who he said he was. He was hiding billions, and a past powerful enough to destroy us both.
Welcome to Twisted Fame, where the drama is real and the stories are wild. Support the channel by liking, subscribing, and commenting. Let's dive into today's story.
I never imagined that love could blind me this much. When I first met Ryan, my world was small, quiet, predictable, and a little lonely. I worked as a part-time waitress at a small diner in downtown Seattle. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was simple. Then one chilly evening, everything changed. He walked in wearing an old brown jacket that looked a little too big for him. And his shoes, well, they'd seen better days. His hands were rough, maybe from hard labor, but when he smiled at me, it felt like someone had turned on the sun inside that dim little diner. He ordered black coffee and a slice of cherry pie. He didn't say much at first, but his eyes were kind, the kind that made you feel seen, not just looked at. And when he finally spoke, his voice had this gentle warmth. He said, "You must get tired being on your feet all day." I laughed. "You could say that, but at least I get free pie." That's how it started. A few casual talks between coffee refills, then longer conversations, then walks after my shifts. I found out he worked as a delivery guy for a local grocery store. He didn't own a car. He borrowed the store van for deliveries. Sometimes he'd show up with bruised hands from carrying heavy boxes, but he'd still smile like the world was perfect. Every time we met, he treated me like I was someone special. He'd open doors, bring me small gifts, sometimes just flowers he picked from the park. He listened when I talked about my dreams of traveling, of writing, of having a little house by the lake one day. He'd nod and say, "You'll get there, Emma. I believe in you." No one had ever said that to me before, but not everyone saw what I saw. My mom thought I'd lost my mind. "Emma," she said one evening over dinner, "you have a degree. You worked so hard. You deserve someone successful, someone who can give you stability, not struggle." I remember smiling sadly. "Mom, not everyone measures success with money." She sighed. "Love doesn't pay the bills, sweetheart." Maybe she was right, but Ryan made me feel rich in ways money couldn't. We didn't go on fancy dates. We walked through the park, ate ice cream from dollar cups, and watched old movies on his tiny TV. Once, when it rained, we danced under an awning while waiting for the bus. It sounds silly, but that night I felt happier than any luxury could ever make me. Months passed, and our bond grew stronger. Ryan worked long hours to make ends meet, but he never complained. Even when he was exhausted, he'd still ask, "How was your day?" And really listen. He'd joke, "One day I'll buy you a castle. For now, we'll settle for coffee and dreams." I used to tease him. "I'll take that castle, but only if it comes with you." He smiled every time. And then came the night I'll never forget. It was late December, freezing, with the city wrapped in holiday lights. We stood on the bridge where we first met, the skyline glowing behind us. He looked nervous, his hands shaking slightly. "Emma," he said softly, pulling out a small box. Inside was a simple silver ring, no diamond, no sparkle, just a band of love and sincerity. "I don't have much to offer," he whispered, "but I promise you'll never go a day without love." Tears filled my eyes. I didn't care about the size of the ring or the price of the metal. I saw honesty in his eyes, the kind of honesty you can't buy. I said yes. We got married in a tiny courthouse ceremony. No fancy dress, no guests, just us. Our honeymoon was a weekend trip to a cabin outside the city, where we cooked noodles and laughed about how broke we were. I thought it was the beginning of a beautiful, humble life together, but slowly small things began to feel off. Ryan never talked much about his past. He said his parents had passed away and that he'd moved from another state for work. I didn't pry. I thought maybe it was painful for him. But sometimes his phone would buzz late at night, and he'd step outside to answer it. When I asked, he'd smile and say, "Just work stuff." He never had friends over. He never talked about his coworkers. And he always paid bills in cash. Once when I joked that he acted like a secret agent, he just laughed nervously and said, "Maybe I'm hiding from something." At the time, I thought he was joking. We lived in a small one-bedroom apartment near downtown. The walls were thin, the heater barely worked, and sometimes we'd share instant noodles for dinner. But we were happy, or at least I thought we were. Until one night, everything changed. It was raining hard, thunder shaking the sky, water streaming down the windows. Ryan was late coming home and I was starting to worry. I paced the floor, watching the clock. Midnight came and went. Then suddenly, I heard a car engine outside. When I peeked through the window, my heart skipped a beat. It wasn't Ryan's beat-up grocery van. It was a black Mercedes. Sleek. Expensive. Way out of place in our shabby neighborhood. A man in a dark suit stepped out and knocked on our door. He looked serious, important. The kind of person you'd see in corporate offices. Not in our apartment building. I hesitated, my stomach tightening. "Who are you looking for?" I asked through the door. "Is Mr. Ryan Parker here?" He said in a calm, professional tone. Mr. Ryan Parker? Nobody called him that. Not even the grocery manager. My heart pounded. "He's not home yet," I stammered. The man nodded politely. "Please tell him Mr. Coleman stopped by." Then he handed me a business card. Black. Glossy with gold letters. It read, Coleman and Associates, Private Investment Advisors. And that's when I felt it. The first flicker of doubt. Investment advisors? What kind of delivery guy needs one of those? Before I could say another word, he gave me a polite nod, turned, and walked back to his car. The Mercedes disappeared into the rain, leaving me standing there, clutching that business card like it was a piece of another world. Minutes later, I heard footsteps running up the stairs. Ryan burst in, drenched from head to toe, his face pale as if he'd seen a ghost. "Ryan, a man was just here for you," I said quickly. He asked for Mr. Ryan Parker. His eyes widened, just for a split second, before he tried to play it off. "Oh, that's, just someone I used to work with." "From where?" I asked. He looked down, avoiding my gaze. "Just an old job. It's nothing important." He smiled. But it was that kind of smile people use to hide something, not to comfort. That night he went to bed early, but I couldn't sleep. Something inside me whispered, "He's lying." The next few days were strange. Ryan acted normal, maybe too normal. He kissed me goodbye every morning, came home on time, laughed at my jokes, cooked dinner with me, but I could sense it. There was tension in his voice, a nervousness in his eyes. Then small things started to catch my attention. First, his watch. Ryan had always worn a cheap digital one, but suddenly he started wearing a different watch. Sleek, silver, elegant. When I asked where it came from, he said, "Oh, a friend lent it to me." I didn't question it then. But the watch looked nothing like something a grocery delivery guy would borrow. It looked like something worth thousands. Then came the phone calls. He started getting calls late at night. I'd hear his phone vibrate on the table. And before I could even glance at the screen, he'd grab it and walk outside. Sometimes I'd catch bits of his voice through the thin apartment walls. Low, serious, intense. Once I overheard him say, "No, I told you, not yet. I'm not ready." When I'd ask who it was, he'd shrug and say, "Just work stuff." You know, the usual complaints. But grocery delivery jobs don't have secret phone calls at midnight. One evening, as I was doing laundry, his jacket slipped from the hanger, and something fell from the pocket. A business card. I picked it up. My breath caught. It wasn't just any card. It had a silver logo embossed on it and the words, Parker Enterprises CEO Office. The name underneath, Ryan Parker, Chief Executive Officer. I just stood there staring at it. My brain refused to connect the dots. CEO Parker Enterprises? I had no idea what that even was, but something told me it wasn't a grocery store. I tucked the card back, my heart racing. That night, as I lay beside him, I watched him sleep, peaceful, unaware of the storm building inside me. I wanted to shake him awake and scream, "Who are you really?" But a part of me was scared. What if I didn't like the answer? The next morning, over breakfast, I tried to act normal. "Ryan," I said casually, "you ever think about switching jobs? Maybe something bigger?" He looked up startled. "Why would you say that?" I shrugged. "You're smart. I think you could do more than deliveries." He laughed nervously. "Nah, I'm fine where I am." But the way his hand gripped his coffee mug, tight, almost trembling, told me everything I needed to know. He was hiding something, and whatever it wasn't small. That evening I sat on the couch, holding both business cards in my hand, one from Coleman and Associates, the other from Parker Enterprises. My heart was thudding in my chest. The man I loved, the one who claimed to be broke, was connected to investment firms and CEO offices. Something didn't add up. That night, as the rain returned and Ryan snored softly beside me, I stared out the window, my mind spinning with possibilities. Who was my husband, really? And what else was he hiding behind that gentle smile and simple life? I decided then and there. I was going to find out the truth, even if it broke me. That afternoon, curiosity got the best of me. Ryan had gone out to run some errands, leaving his laptop open on the table. The room was quiet, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the sound of rain tapping softly against the window. For weeks, that business card had haunted me. Parker Enterprises, CEO office. It sat inside my drawer like a silent question I couldn't answer. Finally, I gave in. With my heart thudding in my chest, I opened his laptop and typed Parker Enterprises into Google. The search results popped up instantly. The first line made my stomach drop. Tech billionaire Ryan Parker expands his company globally. The mysterious CEO who disappeared from public eye 2 years ago. I blinked, reading those words over and over again, thinking maybe I'd misread them. But then I scrolled down, and my heart stopped. There he was, Ryan. The same smile I saw every morning. The same dimple on his left cheek. The same eyes that had looked at me across that diner table 2 years ago. Only this time he wasn't in a cheap jacket. He was in a navy blue suit that looked like it came straight out of a luxury magazine. His name was everywhere. Forbes, Business Insider, Bloomberg. Each article called him the youngest tech billionaire in the United States. My hands started shaking so hard I could barely scroll. No, this couldn't be real. My husband, the man who complained about rent and fixed our broken heater with duct tape, couldn't be that Ryan Parker. But there was no mistake. It was him. The more I read, the more my head spun. According to the articles, Ryan had founded a major software company at just 24. 2 years later, his father died unexpectedly, and right after that, he vanished from the spotlight. No interviews, no photos, no trace. Until now. And here I was, sitting in our small apartment, surrounded by peeling paint and secondhand furniture, realizing I had married a man who was living a lie. For hours, I stared at those headlines. Part of me wanted to cry, another part wanted to scream. Why didn't he tell me? Did he think I was so shallow that I wouldn't love him without his money? The door creaked open. "Hey," Ryan said casually as he walked in, shaking off the rain. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I stood up slowly, my hands trembling. "Ryan, who are you, really?" His smile faded. He looked at me, confused. Or maybe just pretending to be. "What do you mean?" he asked. I held up his laptop, the screen still glowing with his photo from a news site. "This is what I mean." For a long moment, he just stared. The color drained from his face. Then he exhaled. A deep, heavy sigh that seemed to carry years of secrets. "Emma," he said quietly, "I can explain." "Please do," I whispered. He pulled out a chair and sat down, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't want you to find out like this." I crossed my arms. "You mean you didn't want me to find out at all?" He nodded slightly, eyes downcast. "You're right. I didn't." Then, after a pause, he looked at me with the same gentle eyes I'd fallen in love with. "Emma, I didn't want you to love me for my money. I wanted to know if you could love me, without all the noise, without the fame, without the pressure." His words hung heavy in the air. I felt my anger battling with disbelief. "So you pretended to be poor? You lied to me for months?" "I didn't lie," he said softly. "I just didn't tell you everything. After my dad died, the company, the board, the media, everyone wanted something from me. People I trusted turned greedy. My ex used me, friends betrayed me. I couldn't tell who was real anymore. So I walked away. I needed peace. And I found you." I wanted to stay angry, but his voice cracked on those last words. He looked exhausted, not from work, but from life itself. "I didn't plan to fall in love," he continued. "You were different. You didn't care about what I had. You cared about who I was. And that terrified me, because it felt too good to be true." Tears filled my eyes. "I would have loved you no matter what," I whispered. "But you didn't give me the chance to prove that." He reached across the table and took my hand, his touch trembling. "Now you know everything. I'm not asking you to forgive me. But please understand, I just wanted a normal life, a real one. Even if it was temporary." I looked at him, trying to process everything. The rain outside grew heavier, almost echoing the storm inside my heart. There was a long silence. Then I said softly, "You could have trusted me, Ryan. That's all I ever wanted." He nodded, eyes glistening. I know, and I'm sorry. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the man beside me, the man who had built an empire, then walked away from it all to live a simple life with me. Was it romantic or selfish? I didn't know anymore. Every smile, every I love you, every simple date suddenly carried new meaning. I looked at the ring on my finger. The little silver band he'd said was all he could afford. Now I realized. He could have bought me a diamond the size of my palm, but he hadn't. He wanted love, not admiration. A heart, not gold. But still, he lied. As I stared at the ceiling in the dark, one thought refused to leave my mind. If this was all a test of love, then maybe, just maybe, the test wasn't over. Because secrets don't stay buried forever. And soon I would learn that someone from Ryan's past wasn't done with him yet. Someone who knew exactly who he really was, and wanted him back. A week passed after the shocking truth came out, and though Ryan and I tried to pretend things were normal, nothing really felt the same. I still made him breakfast every morning, scrambled eggs, toast and coffee, but now, there was silence between us where laughter used to be. Every time I looked at him, I saw two versions of the same man. The one who held my hand through every struggle, and the one who had built a billion-dollar empire behind my back. He tried to be gentle, patient. He'd kiss my forehead, ask how I was doing, but I wasn't ready to talk. I needed time to understand everything. That morning, the rain had stopped, and the world outside our apartment finally seemed calm again. I remember thinking, maybe we'll be okay. Then there was a knock on the door. 3 sharp knocks, confident, unhurried, almost rehearsed. Ryan looked up instantly, his expression tightening. "Are you expecting someone?" he asked. I shook my head. When I opened the door, the smell of expensive perfume filled the air before I even saw her. She was breathtaking, tall, graceful, wearing a white designer coat that looked like it cost more than our car. Her heels clicked against the floor as she stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Diamonds glittered around her neck, and her lipstick was the kind of red you only see on magazine covers. But it wasn't her beauty that made me uneasy. It was the way she looked at Ryan. "Ryan," she said in a voice as sharp as glass, "you can't hide forever." My heart skipped a beat. Ryan's face went pale. "Vanessa," he said quietly. That name felt like a knife. Vanessa. Before I could ask who she was, she turned toward me with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "So," she said slowly, looking me up and down, "this is the reason you vanished? To play poor and marry a waitress?" I froze. The way she said the word waitress, dripping with disgust, made my stomach twist. Ryan immediately stood up and moved beside me. "Vanessa, leave." I made my choice, but she only laughed. It wasn't the kind of laugh you hear when someone's amused. It was cold, cruel, and full of superiority. "Your choice?" she sneered. "Do you even know what you've done, Ryan? The board is in chaos. The shareholders are panicking, and your mother has been calling me for months, begging me to find you." I turned to Ryan, stunned. "Your mother?" He closed his eyes, rubbing his forehead. "Emma, I was going to tell you..." Vanessa cut him off. "Tell her what? That you're not just some tech guy? That you're the heir to the Parker Group, one of the biggest tech empires in California?" I stared at him in disbelief. "Ryan, what is she talking about?" He sighed deeply, his voice soft but steady. "It's true. My family built Parker Group from the ground up. My father was the CEO before me. When he died suddenly, everything fell on me. The company, the inheritance, the media, the pressure." He paused, his eyes distant. "I was surrounded by people who wanted to use me. Investors, friends, even..." He hesitated, glancing at Vanessa. "By people I thought loved me." Vanessa crossed her arms, unbothered. "You make it sound so tragic, Ryan. You had everything. Money, power, fame. You threw it all away for her." Her eyes flicked toward me again, sharp and judgmental. "Do you really think she'll love you when she finds out the whole truth? About the billions? About the empire? About the lies?" I felt my knees weaken. "Ryan, how much more are you hiding from me?" He reached for my hand. "Emma, please. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to see if I'd love you without the money." I interrupted. My voice cracked, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Do you know how humiliating this feels? Everyone I knew warned me not to marry a poor man. I defended you. I said love mattered more than money, and now I find out you're a billionaire pretending to be broke." Vanessa gave a bitter laugh. See? I told you, Ryan. No one wants to live in your fantasy world. Ryan's jaw clenched. Enough, Vanessa. You don't know her. Oh, I know her type, she said, her tone dripping with poison. You're just a project to her. Someone to fix. Someone to pity. Wait until she's living in a mansion. Then we'll see how long that pure love lasts. That was it. I couldn't take another word. Stop, I said, stepping forward. You don't know me. You don't know what we've been through. Maybe you had his money, but I had his heart. For a moment, the room went silent. Vanessa's expression faltered just for a second. Then she scoffed and turned to leave. Enjoy your fairy tale, Emma. Just remember, all fairy tales end when the truth comes out. She slammed the door behind her, leaving a wave of perfume and tension in the air. I turned to Ryan, my voice shaking. Is she telling the truth? All of it? He nodded slowly. Yes, my father left me everything. The company, the shares, the estates. But when he died, the people around me changed. Vanessa was one of them. I couldn't tell who loved me and who loved my bank account. So I walked away from all of it. I sank into a chair, feeling numb. So you disappeared, I whispered, and met me. He knelt down in front of me, his eyes pleading. You were the only real thing in my life, Emma. The only person who saw me. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, just me. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But part of me couldn't shake the feeling that our love had been built on a lie. Even if it was told for the right reasons. I looked away, tears blurring my vision. I don't know whether to feel betrayed or grateful. He didn't say anything. He just held my hand in silence. And as the morning sun streamed through the window, I realized that love, real love, isn't always simple. Because sometimes, even when the truth comes out, your heart doesn't know which side to choose. That night, sleep refused to visit me. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my heart caught between two storms, anger and love. Every time I closed my eyes, memories flooded back. The nights Ryan and I shared instant noodles because we couldn't afford dinner out. The time he walked miles in the rain just to bring me my favorite flowers. And now, knowing he could have bought 100 flower shops with his fortune, it made everything so confusing. He had lied to me. He had hidden his past, his money, his name. But he had also given me something no amount of money could buy. A love so pure, so genuine it had changed me forever. When the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, I finally made up my mind. I walked into the kitchen where Ryan was already making coffee. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. His messy hair, the dark circles under his eyes. He looked nothing like a billionaire. He just looked like my Ryan. I took a deep breath and said softly, Ryan, I don't care how much money you have. I married the man who walked me home in the rain. Not the billionaire in the magazine. For a moment, he didn't move. Then slowly, his lips curved into that familiar heart-melting smile. The same one that had made me fall in love in the first place. He set down the coffee mug and reached for my hands. I was so afraid of losing you, he said. You have no idea what it's like, living in a world where everyone has a price. I didn't want to be someone you settled for. I wanted to be someone you chose. Tears welled up in my eyes. But this time, they weren't from pain. Ryan, I didn't fall in love with your wallet, I whispered. I fell in love with your soul. He pulled me into his arms, and for the first time in weeks, everything felt right again. A week later, he told me to dress nicely. I want to show you something, he said mysteriously. We drove through the city in silence, the skyline of Seattle glistening under the morning sun. I kept wondering where we were going, until the car stopped in front of a massive glass building. My jaw dropped. The sign above the entrance gleamed in silver letters. Parker Enterprises. Employees in suits were walking in and out. Security guards saluted Ryan, and I suddenly realized what it meant to be part of his world. Ryan turned to me, his expression serious but full of warmth. This, he said quietly, is where I truly belong. My father built this company from nothing. I ran from it for years because I thought it was a curse, but now I see it's part of who I am. He took my hand and smiled. And I want you by my side, not just as my wife, but as my partner, and the woman who saw me when no one else did. My throat tightened with emotion. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded and whispered, always. From that day on, our lives changed, but our hearts didn't. Yes, our apartment turned into a mansion. Our tiny kitchen became a marble hall. I had closets full of designer clothes, and we traveled to places I'd only dreamed about. But somehow Ryan still managed to keep our love grounded. Every morning, he still made me coffee. The same way he used to when he was poor. Same chipped mug. Same silly smile, same man. Sometimes we'd sit on the balcony overlooking the city lights, and he'd say, "You know, Emma, money can build walls, but love breaks them." And I'd smile, because I finally understood what he meant. But life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were challenges, business meetings, public attention, and people trying to stir drama about our past. Yet through it all, we stood strong, because we'd already faced the hardest test, the test of truth. And truth, once accepted, sets love free. One evening, as we hosted a small charity gala for children's education, something Ryan was deeply passionate about, he took the stage. His voice was steady, confident, and proud. "I used to believe that success meant power," he told the crowd. "But I learned something far greater. Success means gratitude. It means having someone who believes in you even when you've stopped believing in yourself." Then he looked at me, right there in front of everyone, and said, "To my wife, Emma, who taught me that love doesn't need proof, only presence. Thank you for seeing the man, not the money." My eyes filled with tears. The applause that followed echoed through the hall, but all I could hear was his voice. The same voice that once asked me out over a cup of cheap coffee. It's funny how life works. I once thought I'd married a poor man with a kind heart. Turns out I married a billionaire with the same kind heart. But now I know, the value of a person isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in how they make you feel when the world goes quiet. And every time Ryan looks at me, I'm reminded, real love doesn't care about wealth. It cares about truth, kindness, and heart. Because in the end, the richest people are the ones who love without limits. Love isn't about money, it's about truth. If you felt this story in your heart, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Share it with someone who believes in real love, and hit that subscribe button for more heart-touching stories like this one.